Hey everybody, it's Dr. Chris with Texas Chiro Health, back with our 12 Minutes to Health. Thank you guys for joining us as always. We've got some great information for you again from the research. That's part of what we love to do, is just get you guys the information on how to live a healthier lifestyle based on the research, the real research that's out there in the peer-reviewed medical journals. We like to focus on the randomized controlled trials, the studies that really tie down for us what it takes to be healthy, right? And like we always talk to you about, it gives you an unbiased opinion on how to eat better, get the right things into your body, how to move more and exercise more, and why that's important to your health. And then also how to manage your stress that happens in life all the time. So again, thank you for being here. We love doing this. We love to get out into the community, bring this to your company, bring you a healthy lunch, and introduce these talks to you. And we also do this every Tuesday night at 5:30 in our offices. So, if you get a chance, Tuesday night, 5:30, swing by the office. Come in, we have some refreshments, healthy snacks for you, but most importantly, we have good, solid information from the research, and the doctors are there to answer your questions so that you can get the most out of these talks for you and your family and your friends, and just learn how to be a healthier individual and live a healthier lifestyle. So with that being said, let's jump into the article here. We've got an article by Martineau et al., and it's about vitamin D. It's called Vitamin D Supplementation to Prevent Acute Respiratory Tract Infections, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of Individual Participant Data. So basically what that means is they took all the vitamin D research that they could find, and it was, I think with the criteria, included over 530 some articles and ended up with over 10,000 patients that they were looking at. And they wanted to see, there's over 2.6 million people in the world that die every year from acute respiratory illnesses. All right, so they wanted to see what is the effect that vitamin D would have on these people. If we had appropriate vitamin D levels, what does that look like? How does that affect the acute respiratory tract infection? So they looked at all the research that existed out there and went through it and said, okay, here's what we found. This is the right level of vitamin D to have, or at least when we start to see benefit, and significant benefit at that. So, and then how do we get the vitamin D? What are the best sources? That kind of stuff, so that we can actually start to make a difference in people's health. Because vitamin D is one of those nutrients that we call essential nutrients, right? And by essential nutrients, we mean that your body needs it. Every cell in your body needs it. Your immune system really relies on it. And we're not getting enough of it. So to see why we're not getting enough of it, let's dig into where it comes from, right? So vitamin D synthesis. Our body actually makes vitamin D from the cholesterol that's in our blood. And it does so by the way of sunlight, all right? So sunlight hits our skin, and there's a chemical process that takes place that starts to convert cholesterol into vitamin D. Now, there's a couple other steps, and saving you guys some of the boring chemistry and physiology behind it, I'm just going to hit the basics for you. So the cholesterol starts to convert, and it converts to a form of vitamin D. That vitamin D, that form of vitamin D, then goes to our liver, where another chemical process takes place, and it turns into what they call 25-hydroxyvitamin D, which is actually the vitamin D that we measure in our blood, because from our liver, it goes to our cells, where our cells can then use it. So when it's going from our liver to our cells, that's what we're measuring. We're seeing how much of it is in our blood that's available to get to the cells. That way we know the appropriate amount that we should have when we look at studies like this and see the benefit of it. The issue comes from the fact that none of us get enough sunlight anymore. And I say none of us, I mean very, very, very few of us. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we live indoors now. We wear clothes all the time, right? We're always in clothing, and we just don't get outside in the sun enough. And those of us that do usually don't live close enough to the equator to get direct sunlight. And it's the UVB rays that are so important from the sun that we get. Now the UVB rays are also destroyed by glass and plastic and sunscreen, and all that stuff blocks the UVB rays. So those aren't getting to the skin. So if we're sitting next to a window, we're actually not getting the amount of vitamin D and the cholesterol conversion to take place like this that we need to see in order to raise the vitamin D in our blood. So very important that we get out into the sun, but also we're not going to get enough of that direct sunlight. So we need to supplement this into our diet. The deficiency of vitamin D in the world has become chronic. It's all over. It's an epidemic. It is worldwide. People are deficient in vitamin D. And this study goes to show how detrimental that is when we're only looking at the acute respiratory tract infections. So in this study, they looked at it and they found great results, which we'll get to. But one of the most important things that I took out of this study is the bolus dosage versus taking vitamin D daily or weekly. Now, the best results they found came from daily supplementation of vitamin D. All right, and that's a good, solid, organic source of vitamin D in the correct medium. Okay. The vitamin D you're going to get from sheep's wool, from lanolin, right? There's a process that they extract it from there, but it has to be transported into our blood by a medium. There's got to be something that the vitamin D is put into. So the best source for that is going to be a good organic olive oil. Okay, and there's a couple other places to find vitamin D that we'll talk about when it comes to eating foods and things, but for supplementation, it has to be in the right oils. We actually mix the mixture of vitamin D olive oil in with the omega-3 and well, we don't do it, the company we work with does, but we're going to show you how to get that and why it's important to get that in the right amounts. Because when they did bolus dosages, right, they took huge amounts, 50,000 IUs, 100,000 IUs of vitamin D, and they injected these into people. They had people take these supplements. They noticed no benefit. It was too much. The body couldn't process it. So this is something that is an essential nutrient, like I mentioned, that we need to take on a daily basis, but at worst a weekly basis, right? We cannot just take a bunch of it at once and expect to be okay. Now, there are times where I don't feel great that I'll up my vitamin D a little bit, give a little bit of a bolus, but I'll never do that and think that's enough. I'll continue the daily increase of vitamin D, or not increase, but daily usage of vitamin D, because it is an essential nutrient and we do need to continuously build it up in our blood so that it can be processed correctly. When we look at the blood levels, what this study noticed from looking at all these studies that were out there and comparing all the results is the significant effect was seen as we crossed 25 nanomoles per liter. Okay, now that's just a measurement that's in our blood, but that number 25 becomes important because when it drops below 25 in our blood, that's when we notice we're not getting any benefit and it's having no effect in the case of acute respiratory tract infections, right? So it has to be above 25 nanomoles per liter. And when it is, we notice that vitamin D supplementation was safe. It protected against acute respiratory tract infections, and patients who were very vitamin D deficient and those not receiving bolus doses experienced the most benefit. So that's just, again, saying what I said earlier, that we've got to take this daily, right? And the more deficient you are, the more benefit you're going to see because you haven't had it, right? So it's going to make sure that, or it's going to have a bigger effect on versus someone who's at 23 and we take it above 25. You're going to see a benefit, but not like the person who was at 3 nanomoles per liter and severely deficient in it that started to build that up correctly. So hugely important that we get that in there. And there's a couple of methods that it works by. Vitamin D is vitally important for our immune system. It helps regulate cells and everything else. But what we notice most is that when these viruses get into our system, when we get these acute respiratory tract infections, there is, and you're probably all familiar after living through 2020 about the cytokine storm that happens. And what that means is our immune system kicks into hyperdrive and it attacks these viruses and things. Well, it attacks them so much, there's so much inflammation in there that we actually have a negative response in our lungs. We end up building a bunch of fluid in our lungs. We have to go on respirators and different things like that. But if we have the vitamin D at this level above 25 nanomoles per liter, what we notice is that cytokine storm, the huge increase in inflammation, the hyperacute response of your immune system is controlled. And we don't get as much inflammation. We lessen the cytokine storm and we fight off the viruses and bacteria and things the way that we're supposed to. It regulates. Vitamin D is in charge of regulating that process. And without vitamin D, it goes unregulated. And that's where that cytokine storm kicks up. And we'll talk about the cytokine storm and COVID-19 from 2020 and all that stuff here in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about where do we get vitamin D. All right, there's a lot of foods now that are fortified with vitamin D. You can get it in vitamin D milk. I'm sure you've all seen that. That's fortified with vitamin D. That's great that you get more vitamin D. Milk is not the best thing for humans to be drinking, which is a whole nother talk, but you're more likely to get good vitamin D found in pasture-raised eggs, right, from pasture-raised chickens that are organic, not caged, not all that stuff. The good organic eggs have high amounts of vitamin D in them, which are great. And you're also going to find it in mushrooms. They expose mushrooms to ultraviolet light, especially the UVB rays I was talking about, and that increases the amount of vitamin D in there as well. But if you're looking to supplement it, the best place you can get vitamin D is going to be in cod liver oil. All right, now there's a couple of reasons it's good in cod liver oil. One, there's high amounts of vitamin D. But number two, and this isn't found in this study, but this is in other studies, and I've talked to you about it before, is that cod liver oil also contains vitamin A. And vitamin A and vitamin D work together. They're synergistic. So basically, they share a cell receptor, which allows them to increase the uptake of each other. So vitamin D does great. You give vitamin D to your cells. This study shows you that above 25 nanomoles per liter, you're going to see significant benefit. But when you have vitamin A, you actually, according to other studies, you actually increase the amount of vitamin D that is absorbed in the cells by about 300%. That's 3 times more vitamin D. So you're going to get it. You're going to get there quicker. You're going to have more of it, and you're going to have better regulation of your immune system. So highly important that you're taking it from a good organic cod liver source. We use Innate Choice in our offices for all of our patients because they combine their omega-3 essential fatty acids with cod liver oil so that in one supplement you get the right amounts of EPA, DHA, and DPA, which are the fats found in omega-3, but you also get the right amounts of vitamin A and vitamin D, and all from an organic source in an organic medium so that your body can absorb the maximum amounts and you get the maximum benefit from it. So this makes it more cost effective, but mostly it makes it easier for the patients. They don't have 19 pills to take, right? They just take their omega-3s, which have everything in it, to make sure that they're living a healthy lifestyle and that they're sufficient in these essential nutrients. So the cod liver oil is huge, and Innate Choice, the brand that we use, combines the two, and it just makes it that much easier. So real quick, I want to hit the COVID-19 stuff because we did come out of 2020, and there are a lot of questions, and there's actually a lot of information pointing towards vitamin D. Now, this study didn't have as much to do with COVID-19, but it's looking at acute respiratory tract infections, which is what COVID-19 led to. People were dying with these pneumonias, with the cytokine storm and things like that. And all these viruses work in the same way. And our body recognizes them the same way. And that's how we build immunity to it. But what happened was this was a novel virus, as all viruses are in the beginning, right? Our body didn't know what it was. So it threw everything but the kitchen sink at it. We were trying to defend ourselves. And if we didn't have the right amount of vitamin D in our blood, then we didn't regulate our immune system the way we were supposed to. Right? And there were studies that went on to show up to 94% effectiveness of lessening the symptoms, of keeping people out of the hospital, keeping people from dying, just by having the correct amount of vitamin D in their body so that they could regulate their immune system. So this is highly important when we're looking at defense to vitamin D. Okay, and I don't care if you're, getting the vaccine, socially distancing, wearing a mask, whatever it is, we've got to take better care of ourselves. Our bodies have to be prepared for these types of situations because the truth is COVID-19 is going nowhere. It's with us forever now, just like the flu, another virus, right? Or any of these viruses that cause these acute respiratory tract infections or diseases that are killing us, right? A lot of that comes down to the fact that we are vitamin D deficient. And we don't have to be. I mean, it is very cheap to have a vitamin D supplement, and it's very easy to raise those levels and take your health to the next level so that we don't have to walk around in fear and shut down businesses and economies and everything else. And I'm not trying to be political in the whole thing. I'm just telling you what the research says. Get your vitamin D up. You don't have to be nearly as afraid of all this stuff, and we can get back to living in life. So, and that's if you're getting the vaccine, that's if you're on a medicine, that's if you're wearing a mask. Get your vitamin D up. Let's start with the baseline. Let's take care of what's allowing this problem to take place. And that a lot of that comes down to a deficiency in vitamin D. There's other things that go into it. We eat like crap. We don't exercise enough. We're chronically stressed out. But vitamin D in these studies is showing to have great results. There is no one cure-all. A vaccine's not going to save everybody, and a vaccine's not going to return everybody to a a state of normalcy, right? But if we can get healthy, we can get that much closer. And that's, vaccine or no vaccine, we still have got to be healthy and take responsibility for our own health. So, it's a lot of information on vitamin D, and there's a ton more out there. And I love talking to you guys about this. And this is why we do these talks, but it's also why we do our special offer every month. We want to get the word out about this to people. We want people to know that it's easy. It's simple. It's not always easy to be healthy, right? But we don't always have the answers. So we're here to give you the answers, whether that's, you're suffering from pain or something like that, or you just don't feel healthy, or you used to be healthy and there's things you could change, you don't know where to start. That's where this special offer comes in for you guys. It's a $39 donation from you to our local monthly charity. And that covers your x-rays, that covers the exam and the consultation, that covers the proprietary health software that we use, the spinal health assessment created by the wellness practice. It gives you a health score, and it shows you, what steps can we take to not only get out of pain, but to just be healthier and keep pain from coming back, and not have to live in fear of everything that's out there, but to just trust our body and be healthy. So, and lastly, it helps us spread the word, guys. We're taking away all the barriers and all the excuses that have stopped you from coming to see us in the past. So just a $39 donation, guys. Don't let this offer pass you. Get into the office, come in on Tuesday night, whatever it is, get the information you need and get the help that you need and you deserve for you and your family. So thank you guys for joining us as always, and I'll see you for our next 12 minutes to help. Thanks.